Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 613. I had the black pieces. My opponent played knight f3, and I responded with knight f6, a flexible response waiting to see how he's going to continue. He goes d4, and I agree to go into a queen's pawn game with d5. And now he plays bishop g5, kind of an unusual move here, but this is known as the Torre attack. It's kind of similar to the London system, and often white will follow up with e3, so we get this kind of pawn triangle here with the bishop outside the triangle. It's just that the bishop is on g5 instead of on f4, so it's putting this pin on the knight here, and with the idea of trading it off in some cases. I think c4 here just transposes back into a normal line of the queen's gambit declined. So he goes, instead of going e3 though, he goes knight bd2, an interesting way to play. And I think these positions are okay for white, but they're not giving any big advantage. So black should be okay here. Let's see, I can try and challenge the center with c5 or play knight bd7. Those are the most popular moves, but I decided to kick the bishop right away. Bishop dropped back to h4. And then I played c5. So let's see. Yeah, we're still in the opening book, and these positions are okay. He sets up the pawn triangle, and I just developed a knight c6. And finally, yeah, with bishop b5, this is where he leaves the opening book. So up until this point, the game has been about even. Systems of this kind don't promise white a huge advantage, but white is very solid, and it's a long game, and perhaps with white's greater experience in these positions, he can gain some advantage through that. But I think bishop b5 is probably a mistake in this position, because what is the bishop really doing there? I'm going to castle the next move. And so bishop d3, the more natural developing move here, is probably better. Anyway, he went bishop b5, and we're just out of the opening book at this point. I castled. And this bishop, having nothing better to do, it traded itself off for the knight. So starting here, black is a little bit better. I have the bishop pair. There's about an equal amount of space. Both sides have about the same amount of space. And the development is about the same. I haven't developed my light squared bishop, but white hasn't castled. So knight e5 puts the question to me of how I want to defend this pawn. I decided to defend it with the bishop. And then he probably just wanted to castle here. Played king f1, and now his position starts to go downhill. Let's see, I exchanged here. He took back with the e-pawn and played rook c8. The chess engine wanted me to play c5 immediately, just going for that. It's already defended by the bishop, so rook c8 is actually an unnecessary move, and that would be the way for me to keep an advantage. After this rook c8 move, it's a little bit slow. Now he could play knight b3. That was the chess engine suggestion. And after knight b3, there's only a slight edge to black. He's got a decent clamp on this pawn here, and maybe he will force me to give up this bishop to push the c-pawn forward and try and free my light squared bishop. But he still has this awkward king position, so I think even here black is better. But after h3, my advantage is beginning to increase. I get the move in c5. Now he plays knight b3, and I go ahead and trade, and he takes back with the knight. Now the chess engine suggests that taking back with the queen is a way to keep my advantage minimized. It's not yet a winning advantage. So say queen takes d4. The line goes here. Maybe I push this a-pawn forward, give my bishop a square to come out to, and then king to g1 to get off that diagonal, and maybe go to h2 and get the rook into the game. And white is slowly unwinding, and black is better, but there's no immediate win. After knight takes d4, and particularly after a couple of knight maneuvers that come up in a few moves, actually black just starts to have a winning advantage. It's just not very long at all. Knight to e4, it's a good square for my knight, and I don't mind this trade. Wanted to relieve some of the pressure there, and I'm going to push these pawns forward and liberate this bishop, and I think I'll have a very strong bishop here, so I'm not worried about this being a bad bishop. and he gets out of the way voluntarily with knight e to f3. It's interesting, I could not push the pawn to f6 immediately because he has this knight hopping into g6, so probably he would be better off trying to put up a stiffer resistance here, try to maintain that knight there as long as possible, instead of just fading back and letting me push these pawns forward. Let's see, he maneuvers his knight around to e2. Cancel that. Oh, he dropped the other knight back to e2. That's right. And I centralized my rook. Moved his king to g1, and I pushed on with e5. And yeah, starting around here. Actually, I think it was after this knight e to f3 move. It just gives a winning advantage to black. And this simple plan of centralizing my pieces and pushing these pawns forward is just enough to win the game, and in kind of a simple way. He tries to counteract the influence of this knight here, but I can just trade it off. And now I've got a passed pawn. I push on with d4. I think I would have gotten a passed pawn anyway, even if he hadn't done that trade, because this exchange here leaves me with a passed d pawn, and that would have been a passed pawn in either case. Let's see, he finally gets his king out of the way so his rook can join the game, but it's just too late. This pawn is now a real monster. Let's see, he goes rook to f1, looking at my queen, and now the chess engine wants to just ignore this threat to my queen. I guess it's not a serious threat whenever the knight moves, as long as there's no great discovery. Then I'd have time to move my queen away, and so it's not a huge threat. The chess engine just wants me to play rook c2, which I play in a move or two, and just control that second rank there. Anyway, I moved my queen away from the glare of the rook. He played queen to d2, which kind of helps me because I was planning this rook c2 move anyway. But he maneuvered to get his queen out here. And but I think this is a winning endgame, so I don't know that this really helped this trade. And I grabbed a pawn here. Probably were better moves, but wanted to make sure that I have some material advantage in case he manages to round up this queen pawn. I want to be able to not be a pawn down, but get something for this. So that was probably a little too conservative on my part. He doesn't seem to have any great way of stopping that pawn. He brings his king in, and I start maneuvering my bishop around. I need to get my bishop to this diagonal to help promote that pawn against the force of his two rooks. And his knight is too far away from guarding that square. That's one of his problems here. So he brings a rook to c1, hitting my bishop. I go to a4. He attacks with his rook. He's trying to line up on the f7 pawn. And I push on with d2. And he just gives up a piece. So from here on out, I'm just material up. Let's see. Oh, I took with the b rook. And then he pushed on with f5. So he's trying to get some counterplay. That's probably the right thing to do, but it's kind of a hopeless position. f6. I just need to make sure that I keep this pawn defended, which I do with bishop to b3. He takes, and I take back. And then he played rook back to b1, coming back to, cancel that. The other rook to b1, coming over here to attack my bishop. Went bishop to e6, holding on to this pawn. And he went king to h4. He wanted to, I guess, push these pawns forward. So right here is a good tactics quiz for you. What's the best move for black in this position? There are a number of good moves, but there's one move that leads to a forced mate, so that's your clue. Okay, pause the video. If you want to think about it some, I'm going to give the answer away now. The killer move here is rook takes g2. And I thought briefly about this, but I didn't see the win. And there's it's pretty simple to win without going for any risk here. I mean, I was a little bit worried that maybe he could get active with his rooks if I try something like this. But no, this is just a simple win here. His king is boxed in, has only one square to go to. And there's a couple of threats here. One is the threat of coming to the third rank and coming over here and taking that pawn supported by the bishop. So that's the third rank threat. And then there's also a fourth rank threat. This rook can come up to the fourth rank and check. King has to come forward, and then this rook comes down here and mates. So the problem is that white cannot stop both of those threats. He can only stop one of them. And so if he stops the fourth rank threat, you play the rook to the... if he stops the threat on the fourth rank, you play the rook to the third rank. And if he stops the threat on the third rank, you play the rook to the fourth rank. The chess engine gives moves like rook takes f7 as a way to live the longest, but there's actually a forced mate in 7 from this position, starting with this key move, rook takes g2. And very typical mating idea. You just cut off all the squares from the king and bring the other pieces in to deliver the mate. Okay, so anyway, I didn't play that way. I played with the check first. And this is just the wrong way to go about it. He blocks, and then the game continues for a long time. Although I'm never in doubt of losing or of winning. I keep this edge, and his king gets into trouble. Let's just go forward a few moves, and I don't think anything else really happens in this game. He's just kind of shuffling his rooks around, waiting for me to finish him off. Eventually he has to trade another pair of rooks and then give up another piece to avoid that pawn from queening. Yeah, I guess that's the other reason why I didn't search too hard for that forced mate, was because I knew I had a winning plan with that outside passed pawn there. So he played on a few more moves, and at this point he resigned. So interesting game. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.